Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you. I'm Brent, an author, amateur world builder, writing educator. You can find me as werewolf_doctor on Threads, Instagram, Patreon, Ko-Fi, YouTube, as well as here. Today, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. We will see. I think... Actually, I might work on that. So today, I think I might at least start to put together a quick reference doc for the big world build I've been working on, multiverse setting. That there is a lot of stuff to, and I kind of want to keep track of what I am doing and what I'm using where. So basically what I've done in that situation, or I may work on some of the other things with the one setting. We will see what things look at here. Because there are a few spaces left there that need some work, and then there are some basic work, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff to change from notes to actually readable material. And this week has been getting crazy as far as the last couple weeks have been getting crazy in the writing center, where I often do a little bit of back work or writing. Let me take a quick gander through here, see if I put anything weird in there. I don't think I did. Nope. Okay. So that becomes a none. Okay, cool. It's one of the things I decided I needed long term is, since I've got 5 different worlds combined with this central junction place, I decided that one thing I need to do is put together basically a spreadsheet of names, animals, plants, magic systems, people, places, lineages, all that fun stuff, so I could do a quick reference and make sure I'm not messing things up with them, accidentally reusing things when I shouldn't be, that sort of stuff. But I also want to kind of get some other things worked in, and what is going... Oh yeah, that one's that. Okay, cool. And there is also stuff with other things. So a lot of long-term plans. I'm also thinking about putting together some, in addition to the individual world setups, I'm thinking about putting together some essentially in-world field guides to certain things, like magics and lineages / races, whatever you want to call them, flora, fauna, possibly gods and powers, and that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I also should probably put that in here. There we go. Cool. That's all set up. Excellent. So let's see what we have in Unestria. We have... And then... Cool. And basically what the source doc is looking like is currently 4 columns, 5 columns. And I'm basically just having lists under each of them just so I can have something I can cross-reference later on. Just because it's helpful for figuring out what I'm doing and where things are going. Okay, so that one's got... then we've got necromancy there. There we have ley lines. What's in here? Seven Cities is generic. The Forest is kind of generic. The Drake Lands is yeah. Is there anything special? I don't know if there's anything special there or not. If this loads. Cool. Don't think there was anything special in there, but let's double check that just to be safe. Nope, a number of things. Yeah, okay, cool. Nope, nothing major. Okay, awesome. And then here I want to sort A to Z. Continue with current selection. Awesome. Cool. Okay, that helps. That gets me a particular list together, which is useful. Brilliant. Okay, I think we're going to move away from that, though. I think what I want to work with today is the... That's a good question. Do I work with the... Let's actually back that up real quick. Yeah, replace that. Cool. Okay. Let's see. Do I work with the Shifters or the Sea or the Undying Kingdoms? Let's go with the Weird Lands. Why not? Oh, yeah, that's why. Because what I've got left there is those things. Okay. You know what? Why not? That could be fun to kind of throw out there. Okay, so basically, how the Faire Lands works in this case is the Faire Lands they're basically, get rid of this, actually keep that up. The Faire Lands are basically 7 territories that, let me call up a map here, so my rough location map, so I can get definite position and everything. So there's 7 basic territories that are all linked by, well, they're all divided. There are barriers between them. So between, say, I believe it's between the Deathlands and the Undying Kingdoms, there's a massive swamp. Weirlands and Deathlands, there's a wide desert. Drakelands in the forest, there's a mountain range. Off the coast of the Dying Kingdoms, between Undying Kingdoms and blocking the Sea of Stars, is a massive reef. And then between the forest and the sea is a unscalable cliff. And then between the Drakelands and the Weirlands is that was the mountains, and the other one was the river. Let me double check that. I have that on here. Borders, there we go. So the mountains are between the Drakelands, which are predominantly dragon-oriented, and the forest. Desolation, which is basically a desert between the Deathlands and the Undying Kingdoms. Is that right? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's see. The Glass Cliff between the forest and the sea. Great Marsh between the Deathlands and the Weirlands. The giant river between the Drakelands and the Weirlands. It's a river that's wide enough that between the banks that people on the water can't see the tops of the trees on the opposite bank. Tends to be very choppy, 12 to 24 inch swells, that sort of thing. And then we have a reef just offshore of the Undying Kingdoms. It's wide enough gap for ships to come out of the kingdoms down to like the 7 cities and whatnot, but not far enough they can actually get out into the sea. And then the 7 cities are kind of in the center, and they have no borders, no impassable boundaries. So generally speaking, traditionally, people can take a really tough journey to get between lands. You can cross the 130-degree Fahrenheit desert between the Deathlands and the Weirlands, potentially, but it's going to be costly. Or you can go from the Deathlands to the Seven Cities to the Weirlands, which takes longer, but is a lot safer. Each of the lands, with the exception of the Seven Cities, has its own particular special magic. Deathlands gets 2, because they have the old magic and they have the new magic. Or the old magic and the magic that caused it to become the Deathland, change from the fields to the Deathlands. Basically, desolated the entire territory, the entire land. And then each of them also has, again with the exception of the Deathlands, has their own sort of powers, who are not divine, but are immortal personifications of power, is probably the easiest way to put it. If one is removed for any reason, then a replacement is put in the space. So some of them have actual names, some of them don't. Some of them more like entities. So for example, in the Undying Kingdoms, there are 7 or 9 immortal rulers of various lands who are referred to generally as the Undying. And they exist eternally and unchangingly. In the Deathlands, it was the first crafters, but they sacrificed themselves in order to preserve the land. Because people were making pacts with various creatures from beyond, entities from beyond, to get power and that sort of thing. And it was destroying the territory, destroying the whole land and whatnot. The Drakelands had great worms, some of whom have broken out of the Drakelands and gone to other territories, which is difficult, rare, and almost entirely unheard of. The only other ones to do that are the Archmages, some of the Archmages from the Seven Cities. There are also in the Weirlands, in the Refuge Forest, there are what did I call them? In the Refuge Forest, there are the Spirits of the Forest. And the Spirits of the Forest are more kind of archetypes in some ways, who have control over certain things within the forest and domains within the forest. Those domains could be physical, they could be more intangible in some regards. So for example, there's on one hand, the Green Liege has control over the plants and plant creatures of the forest within a certain radius. Their domain extends a certain radius around them. The Grey Lady, on the other hand, is, what is she? She is the adjudicator of the forest law, keeper of the forest law, enforcer of traditions. And her domain extends a certain distance around herself. So she is the judge, jury, executioner, and the lore keeper of the forest. The Red Lord is the champion of the Black King and the White Queen. And you've got the Brown Lady, who is basically has her domain as the animals of the forest. So we've got a bunch of those sort of things floating around. In the Weirlands, the powers are the founders. So the Weirlands are named for weirbeasts, shapeshifters. So the Weirlands are the founders of the particular types of shapeshifters that come into play there, or animal shifters. In this case, they don't have actual real names. They are named, basically, they have animal names. So there's bear, cat, elk, ferret, fox, hawk, horse, owl, ox, rat, and wolf. And one great worm and one archmage have slipped their way into the Weirlands, which is obviously going to cause some trouble and problems with the native powers. Because generally speaking, the powers stay within their territories. they're kind of required to stay within their territories. There are those in the realm, in the worlds, who are thinking that the Drakelands are having some issues now because a number of the great worms managed to break out of the Drakelands, and there's concern that that is going to cause potentially catastrophic issues to come up. Same goes potentially for the archmages, for the couple archmages that left the Seven Cities. I believe one settled, if I recall correctly, in the Weirlands, one in the Deathlands, and one may have gone to the Forest. So the Weirlands are basically the home of the Weirbeasts. As we go around, essentially, we've got in alphabetical order, we've got the Deathlands, which is a desolate space, desolated by not so great magic. We have the Drakelands, which were ruled over by the Great Worms, and have very dragon-oriented setup. We have what's next? The Refuge Forest, which is basically your kind of classic fairy tale folklore forest. It's the place that is... There are powers in there. There are powers and there are powers. There are the great powers, which are the spirits of the forest, and there are also other powers, things that are unique to the forest, and places that are unique to the forest that might be benign, might be malignant, might be somewhere in between with regard to, other entities and other beings. Then there's the Sea of Stars, which is a giant, essentially giant ocean that is a massive enigma and mystery to the rest of the lands, because it seems to have no life on the surface of the water, no islands, none of that sort of thing. Everything kind of exists beneath the waves. If you're going to have your merfolk, your Triton type folk, your those sorts of things, having their own kind of civilization beneath the waves. And they don't particularly like outsiders coming in. We got the Seven Cities, which is a central area with 7 cities, and various terrains and whatnot, that was kind of overseen and protected by the archmages. It's sort of the meeting point of all the lands, for all intents and purposes. It's the place where all the other 6 lands kind of come together, and also where many of the connections and portals and whatnot to other worlds manifest or come into play. QRSTU. Then we have the Undying Kingdoms. We got basically 7 or 9 kingdoms with uniquely immortal individuals ruling them eternally. And then we have the Weirlands, which is the land of the Weirbeasts, the shapeshifters. Which tends to be a little more wild. Does have some fortresses, does have some towns, does have some villages, small towns, villages dotting the place. But also has the animal life tends to be rather fierce, rather dangerous, because they evolved to protect themselves from weirbeasts. There's also megafauna out there. They're not necessarily the thing that most people see on a daily basis, but most people might see 1 or 2 every few years, usually at a great distance, by choice, because they're not things you necessarily want to get close to. So these would be things like potentially... So technically with megafauna, that could be anything from elephants and bigger. So it could be just things like elephants, dinosaurs, but because this is a fantasy world, because this is a place where there is a high background magic field, this megafauna is going to be much, much bigger. So we're talking possibly borderline kaiju type, maybe a bit smaller than that, maybe somewhere between dinosaur and kaiju sizes. And I've got a thing broken down between avian, mammalian, roughly speaking, piscine, fish-like, or reptilian and other. I'm not sure how much is going to go into any of those. I don't know if they're going to have any necessarily bodies of water large enough for fish-like ones, but definitely we can throw in some mammalian, avian, reptilian, and uncertain ones. What I have left with the Weir Lands at the moment, as far as putting notes together. Oh, and their native magic is what I'm referring to as shard magic, where there is a connection to there's a unique natural crystal that stabilizes raw arcane power, making it safe to use. So in order to use it, there's an initiation, which then creates a link to this shard, this artifact, and then they can train to manipulate and use this stuff and figure out what's going on with it. So it's not necessarily something that is easy to work with in some respects, or it requires having a connection to work with that. So that's one of those things that's going to take that takes a little bit of working to get into. Yeah. Okay, cool. No clue. All right. So sorry, just checking something that popped up here. So thank you for that. Just hoping something I'm doing is interesting for people. So if things I've got left for the things I've got left for going on. Actually, I'm doing that. Is there anything that I'll turn things over to chat? I guess. Is there anything that basically what I do a lot of is world building, writing, that sort of thing? Is there anything that kind of might be on your mind in that regard? Or shall I just keep doing what I'm doing? Which is fine with me. Either way. I don't think there are going to be any. I'm going to take out the fish. Mega fish. Because I don't think I'm going to have any bodies of water big enough for that. In this case. Cool. Yeah, we're going to get rid of mega fish. Undo that. Okay, cool. So basically with Weir Lands, what I've got left to kind of take some notes on before I expand on is history, notable people who might be running around there. Actually, I do have names for those. Awesome. I just don't know exactly what they are doing or where they're attached to things. And the megafauna. So I have not named any megafauna, so I might take that route potentially. And do I have these in any kind of order? Not really. Okay, cool. So I think I-J-K-L M-N, nope. Come on, Word, do what I want you to do. And we'll take that one and put them all. So normally we don't alphabetize by first name, but in these cases I find it's easier for me to do so for these documents. So that's what I'm doing, even though it's not usual practice. I'm thinking it might be good to come up with or name some megafauna. So I started back in sometime in September, and I've kind of skipped a few weeks occasionally because of things. Only doing generally 1 day a week because of my schedule, which has not been which is not the easiest in terms of my work day and that sort of thing, or my typical job. So I just kind of bounce around whenever when I get the chance. Usually Tuesday mornings are good because Tuesday's my day off, so it's a good day for doing that. But yeah, I kind of started back in early September, I think. So just kind of making things up as I go along. Well, thank you for that. It's always nice to have a bit of a chat present, rather than just kind of feeling like I'm talking to myself, which I'm used to anyway. Because my day job is teaching college writing and teaching and tutoring college writing. So particularly with introductory composition classes, it's a lot of talking to myself, or feels like it. Let's see. So one thing with world building that's always an issue for me is coming up with names, because names are not my strong suit. So I think what I'm going to do in this case is check out some name generators, see if anything kind of comes up. Most of these are basically pulling random stuff from lists of random combinations of things from lists that have been entered into them. I really kind of like Mythopedias. It's a really nice one. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in chat real quick. It's got a nice range and nice variety, and they tend to they've got a good expansion of some things, and they update it fairly often and have a good range of different possibilities to pull from, including cultural and historical and fantasy and all that fun stuff. And they have some creature name generators, which are potentially useful. Typically, how I end up using these is I will open up a couple different ones, that seem appropriate to what I'm working with or want to work with, and then I will just kind of not necessarily use exactly. Thank you for that. Not necessarily use exactly what comes up, but kind of mix and match bits and pieces of the terms that come up. So this one I'm not sure really. This one tends to go more scientifics. They tend to be more kind of quasi. Yeah, this one tends to go more kind of quasi Latin for a species name generator on there. So I'm not really using that one too much. However, the creature name one and the animal name one are usually pretty good for Mythopedia. The classic one that's just fantasy name generators is also an option, but they tend to be more one of those things that... did I copy that? Yes, I did. V? Yes. Okay, cool. They tend to have more like... what's what I'm looking for? Random collections of letters, rather than like Mythopedia tends to go more with syllables, I think, than they do with like characters. So if we take a look at, say, but they do have more variety, so they might actually have some things that may give us a better sense of like megafauna type style names too. I forgot about that they've got a wide variety of things. What are my hobbies like? So yeah, I do predominantly these days. I'm predominantly involved in some martial arts and generally world building for fun, and writing and reading predominantly. I used to do things like Ultimate Frisbee and a lot more gaming, tabletop gaming than I do these days. But these days predominantly because of life and family and all that sort of stuff, I tend to focus down to reading, writing, world building, and a martial art called Aikido, which is a Japanese art that is related to traditional jujitsu, in that they both come from the same source. And the founder of Aikido was a high-ranked jujitsu practitioner, as well as a high-ranked spear and sword individual. So it mixes a lot of those things together, but in a non-destructive fashion. So where like jujitsu would break a joint, Aikido tends to lock the joint, so as not to kind of injure the person. Things happen, accidents happen. I know people who have injured people accidentally, but we try to avoid it when possible, while still being effective and useful. What other things do we have that might be relevant? There is actually a kaiju name generator and a monster name generator on here, which is kind of cool. So I think we're going to take a look at those. Pop culture. What's under pop culture? Nope. Nothing really there that would be appropriate. Descriptions, no. None of that stuff. Okay, cool. Those will work. So since I'm really terrible, thank you for the offer. I'm not really in the market for any kind of art at the moment, but I'll definitely keep that in mind. Where was I going with? Oh yeah, generators. Yeah, this thing. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, no, not what we're looking for there. So names. I am terrible at coming up with names. I like using generators for that perspective. If I'm not concerned about what the name might be, generally speaking. So like if it's an NPC that's not really a big deal, I'll tend to go with a name generator. If it's a situation of where like that wasn't already okay, cool. Okay. If it's a situation where I'm not really sure, well, there's not really a definite idea in mind for the character. I may throw together a generator to throw a name in, or they're like a background character, something like that. If it's something that I want to be like a core or a front, like main character type thing, or something that's kind of invested in some respects, then I'll try to be a little more creative. But what am I looking for in here? Do I want to go with animal names? Yeah, maybe. Creature is probably more along the lines of what I'm thinking for these things. So the question then with these, since I've got 4 different breakdowns, then what do I do with that? I want to look for things that kind of sound right for what I'm working with. So, some names sound kind of avian, some kind of sound reptilian, some kind of sound mammalian. Yeah, certainly if you want to check out different media outlets, I do have links up in the top of the chat, or you can toss them back in. There we go. We'll throw those back out there. That's basically everywhere that I'm at currently for the time being. I'm always torn. I want to kind of minimize my online presence, but also kind of need to have an online presence to have to kind of market stuff like books and that sort of thing. So I try to keep it some sort of balance between the two. Where was I going? So let's see what we got coming up here. that's a good start. That kind of could come up with something there. Perry, yeah, okay, I like that one. Perry's gone. The other thing I'm going to figure out, I haven't figured out yet with the megafauna for the Weirlands here, is whether I want it to be, whether I want them to be representing individual unique entities, unique creatures, or like say a Tarrasque or something like that, or a Godzilla, or whether I want them to be more like a species. So we'll see how that works. I will definitely do that when I get back on there after things end. I generally try to go for about an hour and a half-ish on here, so I'll probably be off about 11-ish Eastern. So let's see. Paragon, I think, sounds interesting there. Let's see here. Onabiri sounds kind of interesting. What would that sound like? I think that could be a bird. I think that could be avian. I like that. Why is... That's interesting. So that's already in... Huh. Okay, well, we'll see if that pops up anywhere. One word from the generator is popping up as already being in my in-words dictionary, which is kind of weird, but okay. Let's see. I think that's probably going to be it for that one. Taru. Oh, Taru. I kind of like Tarupin. That kind of sounds like Terrapin, which can get me into some ideas and get some ideas running through my head there. So I think we'll throw that in there. I think I'm only going to go with about 3 or so for each category. That will kind of help give enough to get a sense, but not enough to have like I'm overdoing it, I think. Let's see here. Roku. Yeah, Rokulu could work. I like that sound. A lot of times when I'm putting together names or choosing names for things with world stuff, I go for kind of what sounds good and what my ear likes in that regard. So you get some odd things occasionally, probably. And I tend to, but I also tend to not be too concerned with how people are, what's the word I'm looking for? Pronouncing it themselves. Because I know myself, I don't probably pronounce a lot of things the way that authors necessarily intended them to be pronounced. And sometimes it's difficult to keep the pronunciation guides and that sort of thing in mind if they exist. If they don't exist, that's also an issue. I take it as carte blanche to basically pronounce it however it feels. So for the person who just kind of joined in here, I'm kind of doing a little bit of world building stuff, working with my Faire Lands setting. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention with that, and kind of putting together some names for some kind of megafauna, either individuals or species. I haven't figured out which yet. One thing I did forget to mention when I was talking about the other parts of the Faire Lands is that where they get the name, where they're all connected to each other, which is F-A-I-R-E, as in like Ren Fair lands, is that all 7 are connected by being places that the fair appears in or travels between. And the fair is basically a mobile version of a fantasy fair / Ren Fair type thing, or a fantasy version of a Ren Fair that kind of is mobile and moves around through the different lands. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I haven't really quite figured out how that's going to work with the Deathlands at this point, which is basically a desolate space. So those are still kind of in progress in various ways. A lot of this thing is still in progress because there's a heck of a lot to it. Let's see. I like that. EMEDUS. So really I'm kind of coming at this point, kind of looking at some generators, fantasynamegenerators.com and Mythopedia, to kind of come up with some names for some giant animals, effectively. So that's where we're kind of coming in with things. What did we go there? Bunazai? Oh, that kind of gets me some ideas of, so Bunezhi kind of sounds Mesopotamian, is giving me some kind of Mesopotamian vibes for some things, with some reptilian type mythological things that come to mind. So I think we're going to throw that one in there, put that under reptilian. So I was saying earlier, one way I use these name generators is to not necessarily take the exact name that pops up, or names that pop up, but take bits and pieces of them and refigure them into something that sounds good or sounds interesting to me. Gangda sounds kind of, that gets me some ideas along there. I like that. I'm going to put that under avian. So, and for the, I was saying earlier, for the Weir lands that I'm working on now, which are where the Weir creatures come from, there are megafauna. So I'm kind of putting together some, as well as some other things that kind of curl around there. So I'm going to have to put some more work into the, I don't need that. Some more work into kind of the flora fauna of that particular land at some point in time, because the critters there have evolved to survive predation by Weir creatures. Okay, so let's see here. What do we got? I think I've tapped out that one. Let's play with this one a little bit. Morada? Yeah, that could work. Other thing with it is I'm not really too concerned about kind of cultural consistency in terms of names in these cases, because this particular world gets creatures and other beings from other worlds on a relatively regular basis. There are 7 different major overcultures, I guess, if you will, that come into play. So a lot of naming of these things might depend more on who came across it first, rather than being all kind of related to each other or similar to each other in these regards. That's getting more individual. I'm not really into that one at the moment. So, I think what we're going to do, let's go back to Mythopedia, because I come back to Mythopedia because the one through fantasynamegenerators.com is giving me more individual type names, and I think I want to have the room to decide whether I want to go individual unique creature or species specific, or like species names. Okay, so if I get 4 more, I'll be happy here. Let's see. A monolope, that could work. That gets me all kinds of things, like that brings to mind jackalopes and that kind of fun stuff. Okay, cool. I like that. Because that'll get me that kind of folklore side of things thrown in there, which, yeah, I like that. Okay. Let's see. What about a? There's a lot of R and T in there. How about the? That will work. Let's come up with some. Let's throw out some other things here. No. Serif. Surda. No. That sounds more. That brings me more avian type vibes. Hadza kind of has a vampiric sense to it, probably because of the African vampire stuff. Let's see. Kraruda, no. What Apsar would work. Kind of like that. Okay, and I may change these later on as I look at things because sometimes these get a little weird. Let's see, Kemazui? Kemazui? No, I don't like that. Kemazu. Kemazu could work. We'll toss that one around. Let's see what else pops up here. No. Cradra. That could be interesting. I can work with that. Okay, yeah. That could be interesting. That could work. I like that. Okay, cool. So that gets me some names for the species, or for the types of, whatchamacallits, whatever they are. The types of megafauna floating around out there. What else can we do with this one at the moment? Let's update that a little bit. The people, I don't really know what the people are, what their roles are. So one of the issues with this particular part of the setting is that there are no definitive, like, political, social divisions. Actually, there are places. So there are certainly, these folks can be tied to different places in there. So I've got a couple settlements, and those are both, those locations are out. 2, 4, 5 locations. Okay, cool. I can work with that. Let's go ahead and grab this, and we'll just roll some stuff. Okay, so this one is kind of, I'm just going to kind of figure out where people are based on, and that will give me an idea. I'm just going to randomly determine where people are, and that will give me some ideas of what to work with here. Light Spire. Okay, cool. 1. So basically I have 5 settlements created in this thing, in this particular setting so far. Dustberg. Okay, cool. And then I have another, 6 would be none of the above, essentially. Hid Falls. Okay, cool. And 2 of these areas, some of the Weir Lands and basically the entirety of the Refuge Forest are kind of inspired by places I've traveled. That's Oak Meadow. Awesome. So the Refuge Forest part is kind of heavily inspired by a mix of the Isle Royale National Park up north of the Michigan Zipper Peninsula, as well as a little bit of Maine's Acadia National Park, with some of the foggier bits of Shenandoah. Shenandoah? Not Shenandoah. Not Shenandoah. What the heck was the one? The New River Gorge area in West Virginia, rather than not Shenandoah. I was mixing up trips. Lately, we have been kind of doing summer trips around we've been doing trips to various national parks and whatnot. So a lot of what gets kind of a lot of the inspiration that I bring in world building these days is coming out of national park trips more than anything else. So yeah, that's kind of floating around out there. Basically, you draw inspiration wherever it comes from, wherever we can get it from. In this particular case, a lot of the ones that have been coming up lately have been from national parks. I also have drawn some inspiration from places in the UK and Ireland. For example, if I take a look at the website, if I take a look at the website and I go over to the Junction Multiverse, I've put images by each of the lands. So the photo, and these are all photos I've taken from various places. So the photo by the Junction is from the Tower of London. And it's a meeting of three different styles of paving stones and bricks. The image by Avendor comes from the Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio. The image by Elhara is from the interior of one of the gates of the Tower of London. The one by the Faire Lands, I believe, if I recall correctly, that one is from... Where was that one? That one, I think, is from Acadia. Yes, that one's from Acadia. I'm pretty sure. And I think the one by Unestria is also from Acadia. I think. Yes, yeah, that one's also from Acadia. So I'm kind of putting up some of the things where the inspiration came from in those cases. And just kind of the connections, not naming where they are from especially, but yeah. If you take a look at the About Me page on the website, there's a photo from Ireland, and the home page is also a photo from Ireland. That also is, I still kind of draw inspiration from, even though it's been 16 years since we were there. So a lot of fun stuff out there in terms of, or as far as that goes. So now I know where these people are from. I gotta figure out what they are doing. So that takes me back. It's been a while since I've looked at this one. So I think I'll look at this first one, who is, okay, so we got a Weirbeast, Shard Mage, where are they on? They're in that, which is a small village near the Great Marsh that separates, excuse me, that area. Okay. So what would be their role and what kind of animal are they? Since I'm not really sure what kind of animal I want, so it doesn't really matter to me what animal I get, there's a wonderful little resource online called the Random Mammal Generator, which is great for dealing with shape-shifting figures. I'm going to throw that in chat as well. It's great for shape-shifting figures when you're not really sure what species you want or you kind of run out. So you can put in whatever number of animal species you want. I'm going to put in 6, and I'm going to randomize it and see what comes up. So in this case, we got narwhal. That's not going to work. Mole rat, that could work. Coyote. Rhinoceros, probably not going to work in the marsh. Zebra, probably not going to work. And dugong, not so much in a marshy bog. But coyote could work, and I like that. That could work in this situation. So this is going to be a weird coyote. There are 2 other weird beasts on there, so we're going to go ahead and roll them up as well, just for the heck of it. With that list, llama, gorilla, walrus, seal, gazelle, tiger. Where is this one located again? They're just wandering around anywhere. Okay. Ooh, dire. Oh, that would be funny. The dire llama. Dire llama could be funny. But I don't think we're going to go that route. I think maybe we'll go with gazelle, because that would be also fun. A dire gazelle. That would be a blast, or entertaining. When you have the giant massive llama, when you have the giant dire gazelle or the dire llama coming after you, and llama spitting, yeah, that kind of that gets wonderful images in the head. Okay, last one. We got kangaroo, camel, baboon, horse, mongoose, or cats. Let's see what we got here. Where is that one? That is a fortress on an open plain. Of grasses and that sort of thing. So it's going to be more of a field type. So in that case, based on these, I think horse is going to work in that case, because it's on an open field, open plain, so horse would kind of make sense for living in that kind of area. The gazelle one can be anywhere, so it doesn't really matter. And that's a lizard folk, that's a human elf, that's a part air elemental, so that's all good. Okay, cool, so we don't need that anymore. Brilliant. Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So then based on that, we kind of figure out, based on where these individuals are located, they can figure out kind of roles. I'll figure out some other things with them. So I think I'm going to work with our weird coyote first, because that's going to be a relatively easy one. They are living in a small village, about 100 people, that is in a boggy area, relatively close to the big marsh that forms a boundary between lands. So local weird beasts outside the village with weird beasts inside the village. Leari is going to be a non-binary weird coyote shard mage. I think they're probably going to be near Slipmore, not in Slipmore. And they are going to be the he's the local weird beast population outside the village. So they're going to basically be the ones leading the folks outside the village, the weird beasts that live outside there. So it's been in charge for a couple decades. It's been benefiting both the village and the local weirs. Predominantly heavily focused on with each other. Let's see, a big believer in okay, cool. So I think Liari Nadal is going to be a really big on kind of keeping the community working, keeping people together, and kind of supporting each other and this sort of thing, both in the community of the roaming weir beasts around the village and the village itself. They are going to be more in that kind of focus on good, mutually beneficial relationships. Let's see. The dire weir beast that's down under. Let me double check what that is exactly. Again, how I put that together. Initially, that should be on general, I think. Yes. Weir beasts, 3 kinds. Dire. Yes. Okay. So basically, how weird creatures work in the Faire Lands world is that there are 3 kinds. We get the dire, which can take 3 forms: animal, human, and humanoid hybrid. We have the normal, which has 3 forms, but the dire is going to be bigger ones. And we have animal only, referred to as elder weirs. They can only take human and animal shapes. Yes, okay, animals of the founders or variants. So that works in there too. I forgot about that, so I gotta double check that, maybe potentially tweak that a little bit. Coyote is fine, so we've got wolf. Coyote is close enough related that we can work with that. I don't know about gazelle and horse. Let me double check back here. What did I have? Wolf, rat, ox, owl. Horse is 1, so horse is good. Hawk, fox, ferret, elk, cat. I'm going to say gazelle is probably close enough to elk. They're related, they're closely enough related species. I think that can be fine. I'm cool with that. Okay, awesome. So basically this means that in Naki can take a really big gazelle form, a really big hybrid form. So they're currently not attached to any of the places. So her herd, mostly normal. Mostly normal weir gazelles and deer. Roams one of the plains, one of the wide plains of the Weir Lands. What do? They will small settlements of the plain from roving megafauna. In exchange for food and So she typically will serve, since she's a dire version, a giant, massive flipping version, she will probably lead like the kind of lead megafauna wrangler, where her size would be a big help in kind of keeping the massive creatures' attention and steering them away and that sort of thing. But she would prefer to spend more of her time involved in studying the shard, because she's a shard mage. That'll work. Let's see. This guy is from Lightspire. Lightspire is a fortress out on the plains. So horse works. We got pale gray to white stone, matching walls. Reflects considerable amount of sunlight, giving the effect of shining. Fairly small population. All different kinds. In terms of animals, all dire or irregular, no elders. Okay. So they are the residents of this particular fortress are a little bit on the bigoted side, that they don't allow. They consider elder weirbeasts, the ones who can only take human and animal form, to be inferior to the dire or the regular type, which have 3 forms. So this is a Lightspire individual. I'm going to say this is a scout, because the horse shape kind of makes sense for, speed and endurance and that sort of thing. Let's see. Over the last half decade, as a scout, learned his senses and okay, so because of being at the Scouts and that sort of thing, he's gotten really good with knowing the native animals, their patterns, that sort of thing, as well as the typical kind of megafauna who kind of move through the area. Most of the megafauna are going to inherently be, what's what I'm looking for, nomadic for all intents and purposes. And I should probably note that, just out of necessity. Out of the necessity for finding enough to eat. Though a rare few are and territorial. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure I have that note so I don't forget about it later. So what does our weir horse do? That's a good question. What else do we want to know about him? Briefly, keeping all of these to roughly 3 or 4 lines. 4 or 5 lines. I don't want to have too much information there and get kind of bogged down in it, but I also want to have enough that it's useful and we can get a sense of what's going on with the individual, so they can be kind of used and referenced as things go. So, what do we need to know about, whoops, wrong place. What do we need to know about Nantai? Let's see. I think he's going to be one. So Inaki is not really happy with her role. There are other things she prefer to do. So I think this individual is going to be more interested in what he is doing. He kind of likes what he's doing, sees it as valuable. So he's going to have a strong sense of duty and enjoys has strong sense of duty, enjoys being out on the plains alone or with a small group of scouts to the fortress. True believer in Light Sparrow's purpose, goals, and policies. So this is going to be kind of one of those like true believer types. Hello and welcome. I'm working on some world building stuff for a setting that I refer to as the Faire Lands. Writing down and putting together a few kind of common, notable, representative people that come in there. So in this particular case, we're working with something I call the Weir Lands, which is where the weir beasts are. Just put together a dire weir gazelle, a weir coyote, and a weir horse, who are natives to the area. Working on some of the non-weir people next, who are residents of some of the towns and villages that come into play. I want to double check and make sure that there are people who are... That one's entirely... Oh, that one may not work so well, because that one's entirely... Okay. We may need to change that one around. Or maybe not. Maybe that's just something we're going to work with here. So we've got one who... Basically, once I had these together in order to figure out what to do with them, where I wanted to go with them, I decided to randomly place them in different spots of the setting. I didn't really care too much at this point where each one is, but knowing where they are kind of gives me an idea of who they might be and that sort of thing. In this case, this is a non-weir beast, a non-shifter, who is residing in or near a fortress built on a low hill that is entirely populated by weir beasts. So it might be under protection of one of the great powers of the land. So that's going to be an interesting one. That this is going to be someone who's probably going to be an outsider in some regards, because she might be one of very few, or possibly an only, or she may live nearby rather than actually in the fortress itself. That could be more likely, I think, given the setting. So we're going to put near the village, near there, in small hamlets. That depends on the fortress for protection, and pays tribute to the form of food and okay, so then let's see. Rowan is going to live in a small hamlet, no magic whatsoever. So I think in this case that means that she is going to be lizard folk farmer. That would kind of work. So this one, she's going to generally kind of be just an average person for all intents and purposes, I think. Generally seems the epitome of normalcy for the village or for the settlement. And the Hamlet's governing council such as it is. Cool, I like that. That is excellent. Save that so I don't lose anything. We'll kind of update this. Awesome. This is looking good. I am kind of happy with how this is going here. Let's see, Hid Falls. Hid Falls is a village about average size for Weirlands, located in a small valley depression created by a large stream, framed by cliffs. Ah, yes, this one was inspired by Pictured Rocks. Yes, okay. So as I said earlier, a lot of times I'm going to use inspiration from travel and that sort of thing. In this particular case, this village was inspired by a place in the Pictured Rocks National Coastline, I think is what it's called. Let me double check that. National Lakeshore, sorry. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. So there's a spot down near Munising. Munising? Yeah. Down near Munising, in the Munising Falls Visitor Center, there is which would be the primary visiting, one of the main park centers for the lakeshore. There is a trail that goes to Munising Falls. And Munising Falls is basically is it Munising Falls? Yeah, Munising Falls. That's when we were at. That is basically the stream, the creek, as they put it, as they were calling it, has basically cut out a depression, a sort of I guess almost a sort of a valley, and that's kind of the inspiration for this particular village. Yeah. Excellent. So that's just kind of little fun trivia type things. Little fun trivia stuff that comes up in these areas. So little weird things that become inspirational to what we are doing, what we're seeing. Yes. Okay, we're gonna get off of there. Come back over here. So this individual is there. It's kind of a hidden village. It's not necessarily easily found. The tops of the cliffs around it are covered by heavy woods, so it's well concealed and all that sort of thing. It's essentially under beneath ground level without being underground. It can be partly underground, built into the cliffs on the sides. So yes, this is somebody who is in a hidden village, essentially. Why are they in the hidden village? Why is he there? He is there. He is a shard mage. He is there. Maybe a semi-hermit. Retired. Explorer / adventurer, looking for a quiet remainder of his life. Probably mid 80s, which for a half elf would be roughly, I don't know what. So it'd be fairly, relatively young. Make that, let's see, 1.8. So, mathing. So he'd still be under 60-ish. 50 times 1.8. Be under 50. Be about equivalent to 45-ish. Let's see. So he's there. Yes. So he's kind of practicing things. He was running around in his younger days, basically adventuring, exploring, all that fun stuff, practicing more kind of violent types of magic and whatnot to protect or to remove monsters, creatures, that sort of thing. Now I was looking at some more kind of peaceful applications of the art. But in the process, he's sort of become the village's expert on Arcana, such as he is. So that'll work there. I like that. 2-4, 2-4. Cool. That's a great length. And last but not least, where is Oak Meadow? Oak Meadow is a small town that's fairly big. Giant oak at the center. A couple thousand people. Excuse me. Couple walls. Diverse population. Okay, so this one's going to be someone who probably moved, I think, because they come from different lands and such. So I think this person is going to have moved. And I'm tending to have most of these placed in like the 30 to 60 age equivalency range, just because that's kind of where I'm at in life these days, rather than the late teen and 20 characters. Nothing against late teen and 20 characters, but most of the characters I'm putting together these days in this world building thing tending to be within the 30 to 60 age range, and that's just where I'm at right now in many respects, and where I'm thinking and things and that sort of stuff. So let's see. I've been living there for a couple decades. Came as part of a trade caravan from the cities. Decided to stay. This is a shard mage, so you went through that process. What did I call that? Where is the shard? There we go. Excuse me. Shard Mage Initiation Ritual. But he's going to be limited to minor or small little magics, nothing big or huge or anything like that. It's not primarily his role. He makes his living as what will be likely to come in through there, I think. So part air elemental, does minor magic. Small town of 1,000-ish people, but that's a large for this area. Major trade center. Let's go with. Did I go that way or that way? Yeah, I'm going to make him a tailor. Why not? Okay, so he'll be a tailor who works with all the various materials that are native to the Weirlands, including things that get harvested from the megafauna. Just because, why not? Seems like a good idea at the time. Sounds fun. We'll go with that. And that's actually in some ways a bit of a guiding principle when I work with creating characters, creating this sort of things, is basically, does it sound fun? Does it sound interesting to me? In that regard, I guess I follow Stephen Brust's, what was it's his rule of theory of cool stuff, or his cool stuff theory of literature, which is basically comes down to everything consists of whatever the writer thinks is cool, and the reader will like the work based on how much he agrees with the writer about what's cool. And I think that's kind of one of my major guiding principles in kind of world building is not necessarily so much what is entirely realistic, particularly when it comes to things like geography and that sort of thing, because a lot of the folks from the roots of the genre were not necessarily steeped in getting all the weather patterns right, getting all the geographic features right, getting all of the, even travel times not necessarily being, entirely accurate. The concern was more the narrative, and that what did we need for the story versus is this setting 100% real world accurate? Because it's not because particularly secondary world setting, not Earth setting, it's literally not Earth. So we have room to kind of play with things and have some narrative mucking about, if we will. So generally there, I am concerned in some respects with thinking about the plausibility of things like character personalities, actions taken by societies, whether the society could continue to exist based on what it's doing, or how long it could exist based on what it's doing. Character motivation, obviously, and even the kind of plausibility of character types in certain areas, and kind of social organizations and that sort of thing. In that way, I'm kind of more of the soft. If I was doing sci-fi, I'd be more of a soft sci-fi than a hard sci-fi. I'm not generally really caring too much about things like does the geography fit, real world sciences and that sort of thing. Because we are inherently dealing with a fantasy world, a secondary world. We have a world in which magic works to varying degrees, and in some cases may be able to shape the landscape. We are also working with a world in which there are potentially active divinities who can shape landscape. We have a world in which divinities created everything, potentially, depending on the world, and can do whatever the hell they want, regardless of things like, without regard for things like plate tectonics and all that sort of stuff. Just because our world, in the scientific sense, has a molten core and has plate tectonics moving all around and all that sort of stuff, does not necessarily mean that a fantasy world, a secondary world, has to, in those cases. Mountains in fantasy worlds are not necessarily the creation of geological forces of giant tectonic plates crashing into each other. Mountains in fantasy worlds could be the creation of gods. It could be the creation of powerful magics. It could be the creation of any of a number of different things. So I think that's kind of good to keep in mind, and to sort of rekindle the sense of kind of wonder, the sense of sort of fantasy of the fantasy world. Those are just kind of some parting thoughts there. So on that note, I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'm going to run off and grab some lunch. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I'm Brent, again, an author, amateur world builder, writing educator. You can find me as Werewolf Doctor on Threads, Instagram, Patreon, Ko-Fi, YouTube, and here, obviously. On that note, I will see everybody next week, and have fun creating. Bye.